Moved.
I second.
I guess Richard seconded. Okay, we're now in executive session. Are we clear and closed to go into that? If that's the case, that are here to support the commission. Courtesy to the people here, and I would remind you that we have a online view going on, and please turn your cell phones down or off. And there are people here that can help you do that, or tech people can help you, or it's possible we can do it up here. But let's get started this morning. Okay, anybody that wants to address the commission, if they would please, pick up a blue sheet from Janet at the back, and I have one that will ask to speak to a specific, put down a specific subject and the time or the point you'd like to speak on the agenda, so that we can recognize you at that time. And at the end of the meeting, we'll have a public comment, which will be a general comment period. After the end of the meeting, a call to the public. With that information, and if I skipped anything, Richard?
No.
Good. Richard's my minder. Butch, would you come forward and present item number 16, please?
Good morning, President Price, Commissioners, Director Talbot. This morning we have our two property rights agenda items. The first agenda item is our approval agenda. There are 4 line items on the approval agenda. The first line item A, is the Ocean Lake Wetland Project. The next line item is the Big Sandy 3 Species Project. That's line item B. The next one, line item C, is the Little Muddy Creek Water Rights. And line item D is the OSLI easement to access the new acquisition we have at the WIC WHMA. Of these 4 line items, the department would recommend that the commission approve line items A, C, and D, and the department would like to have discussion on line item B, which is the Big Sandy 3 Species Fish Project. So if the commission would like to have discussion on A, C, and D before voting, I'm here to have that discussion.
Butch, we've got 2 new commissioners. Could you give us just a brief summary on each of these so that they are at least familiar with it?
I sure will. So beginning with the Ocean Lake Wetland Project, this is a project at our Ocean Lake WHMA. That WHMA, the primary purpose for it is for waterfowl. It does provide a fishery for warm water species of fish as well. One of the problems at this WHMA is, although it has about 300 acres of wetlands and some irrigated ground, it doesn't grow the correct food requirements for the migrating waterfowl. And to correct that problem, the department has worked with Ducks Unlimited in this area right here. This is about a 50-acre complex, and you can see there's several dikes across here. They've worked in that area to develop an area, a wetland area that will grow the types of feeds needed for these migrating birds. The current water source for this wetland area is irrigation runoff, and it needs to have a little more supply in order to get the water to these areas at the correct timing. Basically, this would be irrigated something like 3 to 4 months out of the year. It'll be flooded, then dried, then flooded, then dried, that sort of thing. Kind of like a rice farm is my understanding. And in the end, it will give the feed requirements needed for these migrating birds. The cost of this project will be the maintenance and operating cost of these 2 wells. Well, that's the main part of it, would be the 2 wells. It's estimated that the electricity will probably run between $3,000 and $4,000 per year. There will be some requirements to do some initial seeding and some reseeding over time. But the total cost is estimated to be between $4,000 and $6,000 per year to maintain these wetlands. So, are there any questions?
Okay, go ahead with the next one. Oh, excuse me.
Would you like to?
Sorry.
President Price, but so we talked about this yesterday, and I personally I thought it was important information to answer, why are you drilling 2 wells, and the fact that that really isn't the intention to operate 2 wells.
President Price, Commissioner Little, we intend to drill the first well and determine what type of quantity of water we're able to produce from that well. We need to have a minimum of 100 gallons per minute. We'd like to have between 100 gallons a minute and up to 200 gallons per minute. If we get enough out of the first well, then we would not be drilling the second well.
And roughly 4,000 to 6,000 a year cost to the department or the commission to operate this.
Yes, sir.
We don't have an outside source willing to bear that cost.
Our partnerships are paying for the development costs and the drilling of the wells.
Okay.
And so our cost would be basically the electricity cost is the big one.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on that? Go ahead, please. Commissioner Anselmi?
No.
Okay.
So at this time, we can vote on just this first line item if you'd like to keep them separate. Or,
Let's just keep them together and see if anyone in the commission wants to separate one out or another, we can do it at that time.
okay. We'll come back to the Big Sandy project because there's going to be some changes to our recommendation over what you have in your on your memos. Line item C is the Little Muddy Creek water rights. Little Muddy Creek is located in our Grizzly WHMA outside of Rawlins. And the commission holds a water right on 27 acres of land, this area right here. And since we've acquired this land, and even before that time, this 27 acres has not been irrigated. To irrigate it would require a lot of expense and leveling and getting ditches back in shape and so forth. And the region has evaluated this project and determined that it would be more beneficial if we left the 0.4 CFS of water that's associated with this water right in the creek in the form of an in-stream flow right. And as such, in order to do that, we need to abandon this water right in order to get a permitted in-stream flow right. And so the department will be recommending that the commission approve the abandonment of that water right and the filing for the petitioning for the in-stream flow right.
Mr. President, so I assume the state engineer is telling us we have to abandon the water right before we apply for the in-stream flow permit?
That in order to get that 0.4 CFS into the in-stream flow permit, yes.
One more question, but
President Price, and get to your question, Commissioner Crank. The Water Development Commission did a feasibility study per statute. Our recommendation for the in-stream flow exceeds the water available because this water right is still active. With abandonment of the water right, then there's adequate water available for then the state engineer to grant that in-stream flow permit.
here, Mr. President, here's my question. I've seen other instances where the state engineer advises a landowner to abandon a well right or something, for instance, to change a point of use, to change, a type of use. And the problem with doing that is sometimes you give up your priority dates, you give up. So I, quite frankly, I always wonder about that. Have you explored if there's a different way, rather than abandoning it up front and then getting the in-stream flow right, can we maintain our water right and have the Water Development Commission hold the in-stream flow right? Substantively and factually, this all makes sense to me. Procedurally, I wonder about abandoning our water right and then counting our chickens before they may hatch. That, I mean, I assume it'll all go through, but when you're talking about water rights, you want to maintain priority. You want to maintain a whole bunch of very important property rights. And I've seen instances where the state engineer advised landowners to take actions that horribly harmed them in the later on in the stages of that particular water right. So that's my question. Are you comfortable abandoning and then going forward? Is there some way the AG's office could work with us so we don't have to abandon before we get the in-stream flow right? I just don't know that area of law very well.
President Price, Frank, I think there's one other issue of concern here, and that is there could be a petition for an involuntary abandonment by there's a large wind farm, the largest one in the country that's proposed in this area, and there are concerns that they're going to need water during their development, and they're going to be looking for water sources. And so one of the concerns we have is the potential for another party to petition for an involuntary abandonment of this water.
And I think the statute, if you don't use a water right for 10 years, you're subject 5. So we're subject to abandonment right now if someone filed it, I would assume. Correct?
I had the same question that Commissioner Crank had. Is it possible, have you actually explored to transfer the use of this water rather than the abandonment first and then application? And have you asked the question at what point the application, is it going to be current application date, or are you going to be able to keep your priority? I mean, that's an important thing nowadays.
President Price, the formal way to do that is to do a transfer of use, a change of use, I should say. Once you do that change of use, you change the priority date. And so when we go back to the state engineer and say we want to change from a consumptive to the non-consumptive use, that would change the priority date for us. It's really a non-issue, if I can say that, for the commission, because there's nobody upstream of us, and so abandoning the water right through that section is not going to benefit anybody if it's done for the in-stream flow reach, for the reason of the in-stream flow reach. That would protect the fishery and the water right for the commission through that reach down to the confluence with the McKinney Creek.
So maybe I'm misunderstanding it, but getting a change of use also changes the priority date?
Yes, that's correct.
Mr. President, are you sure about that? Matthias, you're a water law attorney too.
I was involved.
President Price, yeah, that's what I understand.
Well,
yeah.
I think I'd check that because I was involved in a water dispute just quite a while ago over in Sublette County, and they wanted to change the irrigation use to industrial use, and the reason they wanted that water was to preserve that priority date. And at that time, that seemed pretty firm to me. I don't know if it's changed it or something.
Right. President Price and Commissioner Crank, we'll take that back to the water management team. That was their recommendation. Working with the state engineer, the only way that we had to protect that water right from that involuntary abandonment, and it's been more than 20 years since that water has been put to beneficial use. So we are vulnerable. But in order to have the quantity of water needed for that in-stream flow water right, we need to free up present day water rights, and the commission holds that. And so we are pretty much in the driver's seat, and that was the recommendation the team made. And I will go back and determine that is clearly the only way. In fact, I'll give a call. Perhaps we can do that before we adjourn today.
Mr. President, one comment. One other option we do have is to exercise those water rights on occasion for their current use. In the spring, in a period of high flow, if perhaps on occasion we could just use them for irrigation, if the irrigation system is adequate, that we could do that without expending a great deal of money. That is another option.
President Price and Commissioner Culver, the water is there in the spring. When the water isn't there, is late season flow, and that really is the question. This is a stream that flows 1 CFS late summer flow.
But if we exercise those rights on occasion, they are no longer subject to abandonment.
That's absolutely correct. This area, starting at the top end, the broader meadow, it actually narrows as you go downstream, is sub-irrigated. And so while there's very rudimentary irrigation infrastructure there, it's clear to me that it wasn't used often, and it'll take a lot of money to put it back in place.
Okay. But I actually, I guess, thought along the same lines Commissioner Culver has, that we could establish that. And then, I guess the first thing it seemed like to do is to make sure that that water, if you abandon it, if that changes the priority date. I think that's, rather than if transferring it doesn't change the priority date, that would surely be the best way to go.
I will double check on that.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any more on that?
No, I just, Mr. President, I just add, sometimes the state engineer gives advice that may be the easiest way for him versus the most beneficial for the landowner. And I just want to make sure that as a commissioner for the game and fish, that we do this that most benefits game and fish and not necessarily makes it the easiest for the state engineer's office. But I tend to agree with Mr. President that if we abandon, we lose our priority date. And it doesn't matter if someone's above us on the creek or below us on the creek. If we lose our priority date and they have an earlier priority date, we've lost our priority date. So it's a pretty significant question for me, I guess.
And President Price, certainly the issue of priority date and our working relationship with the state engineer, we understand what you're saying, and that's why the reason to double check on that priority date. We'll do that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
President Price, just briefly, I answered the specific question with very efficient state engineering water control thing, which allowed changes to existing water rights, and they don't result in a change or loss of priority. However, there are circumstances in which the state engineer's office may have provided a response where they said, if you do that, surrounding water owners may only consent to your change if you subordinate your priority. And so there are circumstances in which you to get consent of your neighbors, have to agree to subordinate your water right to theirs. But it isn't the case that it's an automatic loss of priority, change in priority.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. President, one comment. Yes. After I spoke on using those water rights, I got to thinking that even if we only exercise them on occasion, yes, they're not subject to abandonment. However, if we're not using that water and it's not dedicated to in-stream flow, a downstream irrigator could use that water at any time, and it's not necessarily then protected for in-stream flow. So there are advantages to converting it to an in-stream flow rather than just making sure we maintain the existing water right and leave the water in the creek, because somebody else can then take it out.
I guess my thinking on that was the change of use would change it from current, which is irrigation, to in-stream flow.
Yes,
And if you can preserve the priority date,
Yep.
that's a good thing.
agreed.
Okay, Butch, would you go on, please?
Yes, sir. And just one last thing on this. Perhaps the commission could, when they make their motion, include the priority date as part of the approval, as a contingency of the approval.
Well, I think what we'll have to do is make that a condition that they will check on that.
Right.
Okay, we can't, I don't think we can require that unless, well, I guess we can require it. And then maybe have to come back and say they can't. That's my thinking.
The fourth line item D, is the need for a roadway easement for the Office of State Lands and Investments to get to a parcel of land that we recently acquired at our WIC unit. Basically over here is our WIC unit, and the parcel of land that we recently acquired is this 160 acres right here. We acquired that parcel of land as part of an exchange for an outholding. This parcel of land, we have an easement right here. That's from the landowner that we did the exchange with. But we don't have a right on this portion of the road as it crosses state land. This is state lands right here. And currently, the public and Game and Fish has been using this two-track road to get up to this public land up here, and we've been doing it basically in trespass. And in order to cure that situation, we need to acquire an easement. And on the State Land Board, you get a permanent easement, and the price of a permanent easement is $25 per rod, which equates to about $8,000 per mile. This particular piece equates to a price of $6,671. And that would be from the FY15 property rights acquisition budget. We have more than that remaining in that budget. So any discussion or questions on this?
Okay, I guess no discussion. I'm going to suggest, Butch, rather than pass these as a package, we go by and just do A, B, and C. And then we'll address them as we go.
Right.
Okay. Commissioner Little?
President Price, which I didn't get a chance to get this far yesterday. So I realized that what you're coming to us for is to just ask for approval of the acquisition of the roadway easement. But you also have in here that it would require the improvement of that two-track road to the tune of approximately $10,000. I wondered if you could speak to that.
President Price, Commissioner Little. So we're currently reconstructing our irrigation ditch conveyance, which actually begins somewhere about here. And that irrigation ditch, it diverts water, it brings it all the way across here, over to here, and then finally back into the WIC. And in order to do that work, we're going to have to improve the road. The conditions just aren't that good, and this is a pipeline project, so it's going to require considerably better than the current two-track. The current two-track also, there's a lot of two-tracks that have been pioneered from the original one, so there's a lot of washout areas, that sort of thing. So that's the reason for that expense and the need for that expense.
Well, what's curious to me is because you've got this two-track road, and you say the public and Game and Fish have been basically trespassing in terms of use of that two-track road. So you're saying the intention by the state is not to have that a real travelable road?
The intention of state lands is not to have it they basically, it's difficult for them with the amount of acres that they have to enforce trespass on all their properties. And so they most likely, they probably are aware that there's a two-track there and that people are using it. They just don't go about enforcing the use of that. This basically will protect our use of that road permanently. The landowner that we exchanged with, which is the Iron Bar Holdings, they have consider doing an exchange with the state land board on other properties. So there is the possibility that that particular state parcel could be disposed of as part of an exchange with Iron Bar and the Office of State Lands and Investments. If it were disposed of, then we could be gated off and no longer be able to cross it. So in order to perfect our access for the administration purposes of the ditch and for the public to access those areas, we need this easement.
So you're planning on just getting the access easement at this point, and then you're hoping or are presently negotiating with the state to see if they will allow you to make these. I'm just saying sometimes, I mean, I realize that's kind of a different or maybe further down the road objective, but I just, curiosity, I mean, they may not want the road improved and encourage further trespass.
President Price, Commissioner
Just
Little.
looking at what we may see coming.
So the way the state land board does these is if you apply for the easement, they actually will give a temporary approval before it even goes to their board meeting. And their board meetings are April and June, so this would probably go to the June board. But they would approve it. It will happen. And they like the fact that we go in there and we help keep people on roads, that we help prevent pioneering of new roads, that sort of thing. I mean, it's an advantage to them to maintain their property, for us to have a presence there.
Mr. President and Commissioner Little, usually it's been my experience when I've done these with the state land board on behalf of private landowners, when they grant an easement, they'll specify what type of road they want built in that easement. So if it's a, if you're going to improve a 2-track prairie road, they'll probably specify that in the easement. Has that been your experience as well?
President Price, the experience we've had so far with the land board is when we apply for the easements, we pretty much get what we ask for. And if we want, I mean, we basically, we're not going to go in and improve it any further than our needs and our constituents' needs. They do have just boilerplate language as to the maintenance of the road and whose responsibility is, that sort of thing. But there's not a whole lot of detail as to I'm going to say the construction requirements of the road. The only thing that will occur after the easement is we'll have to go in and do a survey of where the center line of the road actually exists, and that's actually the final step in the permanent easement. But other than the survey, there probably won't be a requirement.
And then, Mr. President, usually after the fact, you have to give them an as-built drawing of where you've improved the roadway or the easement exists.
Right.
So basically, when you're coming to us and asking us to approve the one-time cost of $66.71, approximately therein, I mean, really, we're really looking at $16,671 ultimately, because I mean, in the bigger picture, you're saying, okay, approve this easement, please, and in addition to that, we're estimating this is how much additional expense we're going to put into it if accepted by the state.
That is correct. So the property right portion, to buy the right, the permanent easement, is one figure, and then to develop it is another figure.
At this point, just to make sure, we're just talking about the easement at this point. We're not talking about, cost to improvement.
I'm not sure. I believe the cost of improving may already be budgeted. And so that's the improvement was already budgeted and approved.
Okay. How'd you slip that one by us?
That's part of our fiscal magic.
Mr. President, I assume that most of that is in kind. It's the labor and the equipment of our services division, if I'm correct.
President Price and Commissioner Colby, that is correct. Habitat and Access will do all the work. We are working on also redoing our main water supply, which supplies 900 acres. So this road is critical for us. So
Okay, thank you.
The, as a commission, do we want to separate these,
Yes,
vote on them individually with anything we do?
I believe so.
I'd say we could stick A, C, and D together. At this point, we've asked our questions, but up to you.
Mr. President, I think it'd be better just to vote on them individually, be my druthers. But
You want to do a package?
no, I'd do them individually.
So, Mr. President, I'll get the ball rolling on A, the Ocean Lake. I move the commission approve the acquisition of groundwater well rights at the Ocean Lake Wildlife Habitat Management Area.
Okay, been moved,
Second?
seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, number 8 passes. Presented. Let's go to B.
Oh, not, yeah.
No.
We're not doing B yet.
Well, we're moving to B now.
Oh, I see. Okay, I see what you want to do.
Okay, so line item B, this is property rights needed for our 3 species project. As I believe that in part of your orientation you learned about bluehead suckers, flannelmouth suckers, and round-tailed chubs as being 3 species of greatest conservation need. And some of the efforts of the department to give these species a little more help are efforts on the Big Sandy River and the Little Sandy Creek. And already the commission, the department has done some efforts on both Sculpin Creek and on Long Straw. They've actually built a barrier and done some kills there and started cleaning up the species that we're trying to remove. Now at this time, down here is the Big Sandy Reservoir, and upstream from that reservoir somewhere in here, there's a state parcel, must be right up in here. Anyway, there's a state parcel where we can build a fish barrier, and that fish barrier will allow us to then work on this upstream stretch above the reservoir. So in order to do this project, to do the fish barrier, we need to have a property right from the State Land Board again. This property right, initially when we wrote the memo, was going to be a special use lease. But the cost of their special use lease was going to be $2,250 per year, and that'll be forevermore. And it just seemed a little bit high, seemed a lot high. And so we met with the State Land Board, had discussions, and suggested that instead of doing an annual payment of the $2,200, that we do a one-time payment for an easement, which our internal estimation of value is $4,000 to $5,000. We're kind of negotiating with their appraiser at this time to come up with that value, and we believe that it's going to be something under $6,000. I worked yesterday a number. I couldn't. I even tried this morning before the meeting trying to get a number, and I haven't been able to get what that number is. So we're looking at a one-time cost for an easement of, I'm going to say, up to $6,000, and we could word the approval accordingly. The other component of the 3 species project that we were wanting to move forward on was with a landowner out there, the Ehrenbells, and that was in order to have access across his land to both the Big Sandy and the Little Sandy Creek in order to do some of the mechanical work of removal. And at this point in time, we haven't been able to agree on the wording of that agreement. He's asked for some things that are difficult for us to be able to agree to. So that part of this memo has been removed at this time. And so the only thing that we're going to be asking for is approval to move forward with an easement up to the cost of $6,000 to put the fish barrier in place. These fish barriers, once they're built, they're pretty maintenance free, at least for 15 years or so, and then at that point there's going to be routine maintenance occur thereafter.
Okay, so in my, for summary, basically, rather we want to try to go for the permanent easement there rather than a lease type thing or yearly type thing. and that'll give us access to place the fish barrier and also to maintain it as we may need. Okay, thank you. Get a motion on that, please.
Mr. President, I move we approve the Big Sandy Fish Barrier, not lease, help me, Butch, not lease, easement, and authorize the expenditure of up to $6,000.
Second.
A motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
So then on line item C, the department would recommend that the commission vote to approve the abandonment of the existing water right on 27 acres and the petition for a in-stream flow right on the segment of stream indicated on that map alongside of those lands that are currently registered.
Mr. President, I'd move that we table this for the time being until we get further information from the department with regard to whether we truly need to abandon the water right to obtain the in-stream flow and issues regarding priority date.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded.
Discussion?
Discussion?
Commissioner Crank, would it be better to go ahead and move to approve this contingent upon maintaining the existing priority date on those water rights in the event that they can negotiate that?
Looks like we have further information, so maybe we ought to listen to that, but and then I'll answer your question. Commissioner Colbert.
We have a little more clarity on the issue in terms of the transfer and how it may work against us, but I would defer to Matthias.
President Price, I had a conversation with Tom Anier just to learn a little bit more of the facts on the ground, and it sounds like the case is that while in order to accomplish a change of use for this water right, if you took a change of use petition to the Board of Control, the board would look at the facts on the ground, and the facts are that the water has not been used for 20 years. The amount of water that the board would allow you to change the use of would be that water which has been historically put to consumptive use. And right now, the amount that has been put to consumptive use over the past 5 years is 0. So that's the amount they would allow you to change the use of. What the board would say is, come back when you have historic use, which would require the commission to go do the work on the ground. And according to Mr. Neer, that's $100,000 plus to do the ditch works and the diversion works necessary, put the amount of water to historic irrigation use that you would then like to pull from irrigation use and change to an in-stream flow. So that's how it would or could go down. Does that make sense? Questions, President Price?
Mr. President, who did you talk to, Matthias?
Tom Anier, he's I'm not sure his title, but he's in the fish division.
President Price, Commissioner Crank. Tom Anier heads up our water management section and has been working in-stream flow since 1980 and works very closely with State Engineer Water Development on these issues. One other thing that I would point out is at the point we would solidify our water rights with the current year, then when we go to change for in-stream flow, we will and after we put that to benefit, 5 years proving it up, we can only change the consumptively used portion, which is generally half of what we've put to use, which would pretty much negate the use, the in-stream flow work that we've done. So you really need the entire stream in there, not just half.
Mr. President, the half formula, that's a state engineer's deal again, isn't it?
That's correct. He pretty much holds that each time.
I love the state engineer. How do you define Mr. President, if I might? How do you define consumptive use? Is it a per acreage, or is it a water amount of water applied to the land?
And I don't know the specifics of this water right. If it's an irrigation water right, the way the board would look at it is the amount of acres that have been, or water has been applied, so it'd be an acre foot. They would look at the way the board would do is they'd put their infrared maps up and look at how many acres had been watered, determine how much water had been put to beneficial consumptive.
0.4, this is 0.4 cubic feet per second? Did I hear that right? Okay. I mean, Mr. President, I mean, I think you could remove 0.4 cubic feet per second from a stream for much less than $100,000, but I mean, that's almost something you could pump out of the stream and irrigate this, but that $100,000 to totally rework the irrigation system doesn't sound quite right to me. But
President Price, Frank, I don't know anything about that figure. That's the figure that was given to me, so I'll let.
Mr. President, that equates to about 180 gallons a minute, and we'd have to ask Mr. Bradyhoff, but I assume the department has a pump and maybe a couple of big guns that we could utilize that water.
We've got a motion on the floor here. Let's get that motion moved. Right, call for the.
I got a question. I think that we've got so many questions here. I think that, let them find out all these answers. And we're sitting here trying to guess. I think Mr. Crank's motion, the table is still, and get some of these answers about the 100,000 and about the switching the use and all this stuff, and instead of
One last thing.
Mr. Anselmi, that's what I'd like to do. I'd like to get a up and down vote on this.
call for the question.
One last thing I wanted just to point out here. So this is our historical point of diversion. I'm not sure if we could, pull water at another location to say, use a big squirt or some other form of irrigation. So currently we come out of here, and I'm assuming we have a ditch that runs like this.
Question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Commissioner.
You voted no.
Voted no.
Get that.
Okay, thank you.
The final line item was the not special use lease, but the roadway easement from the Office of State Lands and Investment to access the WIC unit. So the department would recommend that the commission vote to approve the acquisition of the roadway easement across state land to our new parcel that we've acquired in the WIC.
So moved.
Second.
I moved.
Okay. Second? You get that? Sorry? Okay. Been moved and seconded. Discussion on it? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, thank you. That motion passes. Now I guess on to D.
That was and so now we're on to the next memo, which this is the authorization to proceed memo. And we have one item on this memo today. That is the Chrisman Rocking Chair Ranch Conservation Easement. The Chrisman Rocking Chair Ranch is located north of Kimmerer. It's a 2,400 acre ranch. It's this ranch right here. It's adjacent to the Diamond H Ranch Conservation Easement, which the commission holds. A little further over here is the V-Cross Conservation Easement, which the commission also holds. This land supports several species. There is elk and moose and mule deer, crucial winter range on the ranch. There's sage grouse, as well as a number of other species. LaBarge Creek flows through the ranch. LaBarge Creek supports a number of fish species, several trout species. And so this easement from the standpoint of habitat conservation is a good project. Um, the, the project funding, and one of the reasons that this opportunity came to light is there is a NACA grant that's already been approved. And part of this NACA grant was to acquire a conservation easement on the North Cottonwood Ranch. And that easement, it has been acquired. It was acquired at the cost of $9 million, and it did not use this grant money because there was conflict between using this grant money and using some of the grant money from the NRCS. So as it turns out, this grant still is in place for a conservation easement, and you can substitute another property for the property that didn't use the grant money for that North Cottonwood Ranch. And in order to be a substitute property, it had to be in the same geographical location, and it had to have a wetlands component to it because a NACA grant, that's the North American North American Wetland Conservation Act. So the grant is through that program, and it required a wetland component, which this ranch does have. The landowner is Pam Chrisman. The commission did acquire 2 conservation easements from Pam Chrisman in 2009 or 10, I believe. And also she granted us about a 2-mile stretch of public access on the Green River at that same time. Ms. Chrisman also is working with the department with the Wyoming Range Mule Deer Project. She has been working to enhance her habitat. There's been 200 acres treated, and she's done some fencing. So she's working with the department on those types of projects. And so the total value of this easement is about $1.2 million. And the funding would come from the NACA grant, which would allow $500,000 from NACA. We would be applying for a WWNRT grant of $300,000, and then several other smaller grants to complete this project. Pam Chrisman would be donating like 25% of whatever the appraised value is. So, for example, if it does appraise at $1.2 million, she would be getting paid $9 million, and she would not receive 900. 900,000. She would not, and she would be donating the other 300,000. There is an opportunity for public access on the southern part of the ranch, down here, south of LaBarge Creek, about 1,100 acres, that would open up access to a lot of public land as well. The value of that and the cost of that is estimated, and this is very preliminary, at $300,000 to $500,000. That would be the value of it with a conservation easement already in place on that property. And the department, if the commission authorizes us to proceed with negotiations, we would also work towards financing that through the WWNRT, who has not done grants for access in the past, but they have been looking for, I'm going to call it a test case, an opportunity to see where their board and their legislative committee would go on public access. And this could potentially be funded through the WWNRT, the access component of this. And so at this time, the department is not suggesting that the commission would have to put any funds into this project. This time we're just seeking authorization to proceed with the conservation easement and with negotiations for public access. And then we'll update the commission as we have more information.
Thank you for the question. More questions at this point? I do have a couple of questions. Are there alternate access? Is there alternate access to that federal ground, the BLM ground? Is it completely landlocked?
The way that the recommendation came from the region was that this enhances the access. In other words, this is probably an easier way to access it, and I'm guessing there must be another way to access that BLM.
Mr. President, I move that we authorize Butch to proceed with this line item, agenda item.
Okay. And this,
Second.
second, is that Mark and Tony?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so basically what is on the table is we go ahead and take the acquisition. It's already paid for, no money put into it. And then the second part is we authorize you to go ahead and investigate a access easement across that south part of the property. Is that correct?
It's close. Actually, you're just authorizing us to proceed with the acquisition. We'll be getting a final approval on the acquisition for the conservation easement once we have all the funding in place and the deed language negotiated and so forth. And then we'll continue negotiations on the access component, and we'll update the commission on both of those potential acquisitions as we progress.
Okay.
Does that meet what you're? That's exactly what I'd have said.
Okay. Thank you. Right, question?
That's fine.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Butch.
Thank you.
So should we take a?
Do we have a break here? Okay. Okay, Scott? Right, you're ready to proceed?
Commissioner President Price, let me, the Rawhauser here, let me bring those individuals in, and we'll get started. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll have everybody here.
Yeah, we ought to just take a 5-minute break. I need to use the restroom.
Okay, I think before we get into this, let's take a 5-minute break right here, and let's make it 5 minutes, please. Thank you.
conversations with Mr. Rawhauser concerning these damage claims, so I will need to recuse myself. And at the time of these conversations, I did advise him of this requirement.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking that action, Commissioner Culliver. Okay, we still have the floor, so let's proceed.
Good morning, Commissioner President Price, Commissioners Director Talbot. We're on agenda item 18, damage claim appeal for Don Rawhauser, trustee, appeal number 15025. Today we have Troy Ochterhoff, the Newcastle Game Warden, who will be presenting the department's investigation and recommendation for this claim. Representing the Rawhausers, we have Lisa Foster, Donnie's daughter, Mr. Donnie Rawhauser, as go by Donnie, was here as well. From the AG's office, as you all know, we have Matthias there representing the commission, and Abigail Wood-Wines representing the department. Claim 15025 is a claim for OTE damage. The claim amount was for $873.29. On the department investigation, the department recommended complete denial of the damage claim based on the investigation showed that there was no damage to the claimed crop. So, as stated yesterday in the PowerPoint presentation, the commission has the ability to approve the recommendation of the department, deny the recommendation of the department, or modify the recommendation of the department. So with that, before I introduce Lisa and Donnie to come to the podium, are there any questions before we start?
One of the questions that's been raised here, and I may defer to legal counsel on this, is the matter of a proxy for representation. Matthias, would you address that? And I believe the young lady that is going to represent them, do you have a proxy for that? Okay, Matthias.
President Price, it's my understanding that Mr. Rawhauser has executed a power of attorney document, and that document was provided to the department and the commission. As I understand that document, Mr. Rawhauser granted power of attorney to, I believe it is his spouse as the primary power of attorney, and I believe Mrs. Foster was given conditional power of attorney in the event Mrs. Rawhauser was unable or unwilling to appear and represent Mr. Rawhauser in any proceeding. The department had corresponded with the Rawhausers requesting an affidavit or some form of writing from the individual who was granted primary power of attorney to demonstrate that she was unable or unwilling simply to satisfy the condition for the secondary power of attorney person to appear. My understanding that there was no response to that. However, I think that the commission is in a position where the parties present could satisfy that condition through a statement that the person with primary power of attorney is unable or unwilling to be here this proceeding. That is why Mrs. Foster is, and thus she does have power of attorney to represent Mr. Rawhauser.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to ask the commission here, are we willing to accept the young lady that her mother has transferred that authority to her? Anybody opposed? Would you please come to the stand, please? And when you do this, state your name, please. And
my name is Lisa Foster, and yes, I do have power of attorney. Yes. 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 for health reasons. She's not going to come and participate.
I think at this point, Matthias, we can legally accept her authority. Okay. Lisa, is it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that point. Appreciate it.
Well, and I wanted to just say that he's here because we didn't submit the paperwork back because we intended for him to be here, but me just to assist him.
Well, Scott, let's go ahead and with it.
So at this time,
You can sit down, I think, now if you would like, or
they're up first.
they're up first.
So at this time,
Okay.
Commissioner President Price, Commissioners Director Talbot, I'd like to introduce Lisa Foster and Donnie Rawhauser to present their side of claim 15025. Just a quick side note, we have two claims here today for the Rawhausers, number 25 and 42, and we'll do each one separately so there's no confusion on if there's some type of compensation, and so we can keep that absolutely separate for each claim. So
Okay.
at this time, Lisa and Donnie.
Thank you.
You guys have the oat production in your exhibits that you have, is that correct?
Yes, I think Scott will present that, has that there.
Mr. President, if I may, Rawhausers have never done a commission appeal before, so if it'd be okay, I can maybe come up and when they're talking, show the commission what they're referring and they're saying that, okay, because I don't need to have any type of PowerPoint.
Yes. Is that okay with you, Lisa?
Yes, yes, please.
Okay, thank you. And please we'll keep to the facts on this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Fact is, we did not get a appraisal from the game warden. What we did get after the fact of sending in the claims, the game warden said the oats would make over 3 tons to the acre. I cut them, the whole unit, everything, and baled it, weighed the bales, and it made less than 2 tons. Where'd the other ton go? And if there's not a ton missing, then the game warden does not know what he's doing with the appraisals. Just a note, the appraisers that come for the insurance companies have to work under another appraisal person before they become an appraiser. And that for a full year.
Am I right in when I reviewed this that there were cages put out to make measurements and protect areas from the elk intrusion, as well as cameras placed on the thing so that you had a comparison for damaged and undamaged ground or crop, let's put it that way, damaged and undamaged.
that is correct.
That is correct.
They were there. And if I may, my father is hard of hearing, and so I'm going to have to repeat what you just said.
You're entirely welcome
Okay.
there, because I understand that I have hearing aids.
Yeah, he doesn't. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What you're saying.
What I'm saying, Mr. President, what I'm saying, we cut the whole crop, the whole unit, everything, and baled it and weighed the bales, and it didn't make 2 tons. The game warden said it would make over 3. Where's this other ton at?
He said it would make 3 on the inside of the cages.
And outside.
And outside.
But
it only made.
it didn't even make 2. So there's a problem there.
Okay.
I see the problem, one of 2 things. Either he don't know what he's doing, or you people owe us for 100 ton of hay.
Okay. Do you have any other presentation at this point. I know we'll work with you on this because I know it's kind of, I have actually been on the other side of that podium.
Oh, well,
And so there is a certain concern and nervousness.
Part of it,
So if you'd like to present some pictures of the herds of elk that are on the property, and these were in the summer?
Yeah, that was last summer.
Last summer is when, are
The
we able
dates are
to?
on. Dates are on.
Yep, and they're all dated. That's the
Or,
price to look
yes,
at, or
doesn't matter.
you can look at them if you want.
Okay, I think, do we have these in our computer? Or are these,
These are additional pictures.
these are additional pictures? I think at this time you go ahead and present them if you'd like. I would ask actually that you present them to Scott. He'll take a look at them.
Okay. There's one other, and this really kind of has to do with both claims. This packet that we got back was just one packet for both claims. So I'm not sure if this was meant to be for this claim or the claim that's going to follow this one. But one of the things that was addressed in there was a map that Troy had requested from my father. And for lack of a better words, it kind of makes my father look like an idiot because he says that he requested this information and my father did not comply. He wouldn't give him the map. Well, we sent the map to the address that was listed on the website. It's an invalid address. So that shouldn't be our fault because the Wyoming Game and Fish has an incorrect address on the system. So this is just a copy of the Wyoming Game and Fish addresses that they had on there. And so I just needed to clarify that.
But we did send them.
But we
He
did,
asked
they were
again.
sent.
You did
And
send
the
it.
post office repeatedly tried to get somebody to come and pick them up from the Game and Fish and nobody complied, so they sent them back to us.
Okay. Okay, so basically at this point, what I have here on my computer, which is this, is that in this particular one, the Warden Atchall projected that the enclosures had 3 tons per acre. Average production outside the enclosures he has is 3.4. Is that incorrect?
That is incorrect.
Okay, that's your position, is that is incorrect.
Yes.
What is the actual, what you have actual?
What did it actually make? 2?
Little less than 2 tons an acre. You have the production maps, or should have. We mailed them to you.
Okay, well, I'm looking, without looking over, I'm just looking over
It's a little less than 2 tons.
the average.
Yep.
So you averaged over less than 2 tons,
Yes.
about a little over 2 tons per acre.
No, less than 2 ton.
Less than 2 tons.
Yeah, so we'll just call it 2 ton.
Okay. And the projection from the inside the enclosure is 3 tons. Okay. Do you have anything further to ask? Because we have to listen to your side, and then we'll talk to the warden, and we'll take that presentation. And then I think we'll have to talk to you some more to be able to address the problem and see if we can correct it.
No, we don't have any further questions at this time, then, or any further information for that.
Scott, do you have anything more to add at this point? Okay. Would you go ahead and sit down, please? And I will call you back after we've had the other side.
No.
Commission President Price, Commissioner Director Talbot, if there's no further questions for Lisa or Donnie at this time, I'd like to ask Troy Otterhoff, the Newcastle Game Warden, who was the investigating warden in this damage claim, to please come forward and present the department's investigation report and recommendation reasons for this claim. Troy?
Good morning. President Price, Commission, Director Talbot. I just wanted to present a little bit of background on my training and how long I've been a game warden. I started in South Dakota in 2001, and I was there about 5 years, and then I came to Wyoming, and I've been a Wyoming game warden since 2005. Since I transferred over to Newcastle from Gillette, in fact, prior to my transfer, I had to come over and work on Mr. Rawhauser's damage situation. It began in 2011. I actually transferred over the summer of 2012. And like I said, I started coming over to address the damage situation before actually moving over to Newcastle. Mr. Rawhauser has filed a damage claim each consecutive year since 2011, and I have no reason not to believe that will continue. Okay, the first of the two claims for today is number 15025. And we'll do the first claim, I understand, and then I'll be following up with the second claim afterward. Okay, a little background information on this claim. Donald Rawhauser has filed damage claims with the Wyoming Game and Fish Department annually since 2011. Mr. Rawhauser has been given copies of the damage statutes and regulations on numerous occasions, most recently the spring of 2014 by myself. Two damage claims were filed by Mr. Rawhauser for the Barty Bar Ranch Trust in 2014. These were assigned claim numbers 25 and 42, 15025 and 15042. This is a small part of the damage affidavit for claim 25 that Mr. Rawhauser filed. It shows that he claimed $873.29 for elk damage to his oak crop. Mr. Rawhauser did not include any calculations or evidence supporting this damage claim amount. You can see on the bottom bulleted point, it says identify the amount of property damaged, including all calculations and evidence supporting the value determination. And he listed one field at 19.9 acres on the east portion of the unit claim that was not affected by elk. So he's saying that would be excluded from the claim. On June 10 of 2014, 4 exclosures or cages were set up on the oak fields by Mr. Rawhauser, both Don Rawhauser, Tim Rawhauser, and myself. Don Rawhauser chose the locations of the exclosures, and then I went back and photographed and took GPS locations of the exclosures after they were erected. Trail cameras were set up by exclosure number 4 to monitor the elk use, and those ran throughout the night as well. They had infrared capability, so they could pick up elk activity at night as well. This is the crop map that Mr. Rawhauser referred to earlier, and the portion that is involved in the oak claim is the blue portion. You can see the exclosure locations are indicated in relative to the fields and where those exclosures were erected. And by exclosure number 4, there were 2 trail cameras placed to monitor that. We did 2 to be redundant in case one failed. This is early in the crop growing season. You can see exclosures 1 through 4 are indicated here. This is farther along in the growing season for the oak crop. This photo was taken on July 25. And then this photo is from August 19. These photos show the mature crop, and in fact in exclosure number 3 photo you can see where harvest has begun in the background. Elk use and trail cameras. 2 trail cameras were placed near exclosure number 4. Cameras operated from July 31 through August 21. That was a total period of 22 days. The cameras took on approximately 160 photos per day and documented elk on only 4 of those days. The number of elk per photo was between 1 and 22. Average number of elk actually turned out to be about 7. And both those cameras were functional the entire time. These are the 4 photos which had elk in them. And actually, looking at those dates, the first three, the two on the top and the bottom left one, were from August 8th, and the bottom right one was actually after the crop was harvested. I'm sorry, the bottom left one was August 22. The bottom right one was after the crop was harvested. The evaluation of the oat crop occurred on August 19. I evaluated the oat forage production both inside and outside all 4 exclosures. I was trained to do this by a licensed crop adjuster out of Crook County, and I was trained on this procedure in 2013. It's the procedure we were going to use that year. And then we had a regional training by the same licensed crop adjuster in 2014 for forage production as well. Forage production was then averaged and compared inside versus outside the exclosures. Average forage production inside the exclosures was measured at 3.0 tons. Average forage production outside the exclosures was measured at 3.4 tons. So forage production was 0.4 tons greater outside the exclosures, and because it was greater outside the exclosures, there was no elk damage measured. These are the evaluation worksheets I used to assess the damage, and you can see the top worksheet was for exclosures 1, 2, and 4, and the bottom one was for exclosure number 3. So the Wyoming Game and Fish Commission regulation that applies to damage is Chapter 28. That's the regulation governing bigger trophy game animal or game bird damage claims. And Section 2 definitions applies to this claim in particular. Subsection J defines damage as actual damage to land, growing cultivated crops, stored crops, seed crops, or improvements that is caused by big game animals. So based on the department's investigation, there was no elk damage to the oat crop. To summarize this claim, oat forage production in tons was calculated as follows. Production inside the exclosures was averaged at 3.0 tons per acre. Production outside exclosures was averaged at 3.4 tons. Oat forage production was therefore 0.4 of a ton or 0.4 tons greater outside the exclosures than inside the exclosures. Mr. Ahauser gave no calculations or other evidence supporting the value of damage that he claimed at $873.29. He estimated a loss in the draw field at approximately 763.2 pounds per acre. He listed a price in his affidavit for oat hay of $0.0575 per pound or $115 per ton. No damage to the oat hay was measured or documented. Therefore, the department recommends denial of this claim. Thank you.
I'm going to ask a question of you, Troy. Did you take into account the fact that the hay can dry out after, he's put it up as bales, as I understand it. It was baled. So he would be putting it up as dry. Have dried out, say 20% moisture type thing. Did you try to look at that?
Yes, we did. The licensed crop adjuster that trained me on this process said we needed to get a moisture tester, and we did purchase that. He trained us on the use of that, and that's what I used to account for the moisture in the crop.
You cut it green and then did the moisture measurement and then removed the amount of moisture from the crop there so that you've got a dry crop type measurement.
That's essentially correct, President Price. What I did was put that in the moisture tester. That gave me a value, and then that value was figured in to assess the amount of the crop that was produced.
Okay. Does the commission have any more questions? At this point, we'll continue. Yes.
For the
Mr.
record,
Rail.
this is not irrigated ground, right? This is dryland farming?
Commissioner Rail, President Price, that is correct. It's dry land. Yes, he did. Uh, President Price, Commissioner Crank, I believe that's all that was submitted for this claim.
Yes, Commissioner Rail.
Uh, how many acres total are we talking about here? I see nothing here. What are we talking about total harvested acres?
Excuse me for one moment.
Absolutely.
President Price, it looks like a rough estimate based on the map that was provided, the crop map, is approximately 75 acres. It was actually claimed. And the one field that was just over 19 acres was excluded by Mr. Rawhauser.
One more question, if you would please, for me. When you took samples of the hay, of the forage around the field at various places, you took it at random locations around that to gather up the exclosure outside of it, outside of the enclosures. You took that at random points.
Commissioner Price, President. Yes, what I did was the portion inside the exclosures. That usually I did portions of 1 to 2 rows. In this case, I think the exclosures were large enough. I did 1 row, and if it looked like it was a good, a consistent row that ran outside the exclosure, then I just followed through outside of the exclosure on the same row.
Okay, so they were taken basically inside and outside, side by side.
Correct.
Okay. I guess what I'm kind of looking at are there other areas, and in my package here, I see pictures of where it does look like there's an elk trail through the area and elk laid down. Is that correct? That there are other areas there?
President Price, there were some areas it looked like various wildlife had walked through the field and intertwined the heads of the oats. There are more deer that frequent this area, according to the pictures on the trail cam, than elk. So something walked through there. It may have been deer, it may have been elk, it may have been cattle if cattle escaped.
Okay. Do you have other information you want to present at this time, Scott?
Commissioner President Price, I think at this time, unless Troy has anything else you'd like to discuss on that claim, I believe the department has presented its findings.
Okay. Can we look at those pictures, please?
Yes, sir.
Let's get these up. We don't have time really to just look at these, so we'll scan these the best we can. There's a date here. Scott, did you single out any of these pictures that you thought were particularly relevant?
Commissioner President Price, I did not. I didn't feel comfortable doing that because I don't know where those pictures were taken, if they're taken exactly in relation to this damage claim, or they're taken on this location as well as other locations on the ranch. I guess perhaps have Troy look at them briefly and see if he has any comments regarding those photos in conjunction with the photos that we collected.
Mr. Rawhauser, how did you take your pictures?
I believe so.
At this point, I think we'd like to have the Rawhausers come back out.
That would be fine. I just maybe why you folks are doing that is if I could show Troy Ochterhoff those photos that have been provided, as he has not seen those or a sampling of those pictures.
We'll do that. Could we have the Rawhauser, would you please come up, Lisa? You and your father come up, please. Help if I turn that thing on. So thank you for coming up. And I think at this point we'll talk to you a little bit. I'm going to first of all comment, ask when were these pictures taken?
The dates are, can you see the dates on
Yeah,
it?
I know that. The only things I saw were like May and June. Were there other later dates when the crop had grown further up?
We'd have to go back on the camera chip and find them and print them off. So we do have them, just not with us.
For later in the year?
Yeah, you have them for
when the
later
crop
in the year.
has grown more?
Yeah. Yeah, the cameras were there the whole time.
Okay, Commissioner Rail, if you want to.
Where are the cameras mounted?
Where were the cameras mounted?
In relation to where
They were on a tree.
in relation to where the game and fish cameras.
I never did see the game and fish cameras.
Yeah, we didn't see the game and fish cameras.
So they were taken on these same two fields? These three fields?
Yeah, well, there's however many fields there's.
4 fields, I think.
4 or 5.
6 fields.
On the
Mr.
85
President,
acres.
maybe we could put up the map and he could show us on the map what it was.
That is 85 acres.
Yeah, it's 85 acres, not 75. Show them on the map where your cameras
Where
were
my
at.
cameras were?
Yes, yes. Is that correct? You wanted him to show you where the, okay.
Do you have any more questions from the commissioners at this point? Well, at this point, do you have anything else to say, Lisa?
Not on the oaks, no.
At this point, did Troy get a look at those, Scott?
Yeah, my dad just wanted to make mention that we did have documentation because we sent them what the crop actually made. So that was our documentation on the maps.
The bales were on
The bales were on
Okay.
the maps.
They're
The actual
written.
bales were on the maps, so you could see how many bales
They're
were
written
on.
right there on the map.
Yes,
then.
yes.
And-
So that showed
That's
you
documentation.
exactly how many bales that field made.
Okay. How many bales did you weigh to get your bale weight average?
Just two, but I
Just-
could still go weigh a semi-load if you want to.
Yeah.
I imagine they've dried a little.
You know, that's part of the thing. It does dry, even after you got it. So you're weighing the bales as they were dried. When Troy made the measurement, he did a mathematical correction for moisture weight on that. Okay, I'm just trying to nail down the information that we have. At this point, unless you have something else, I guess I'd ask you to take your seat and we'll give Troy a chance to explain, and he'll look at those pictures. There. Scott, is that okay with you? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Don.
That'd be great, Commissioner President Price. Troy, at this time, would you like to come up and talk about the pictures that you reviewed and the placement of the game and fish cameras and where they were placed as well, just to confirm that?
As far as the placement of the game and fish cameras go, they were located just on the fence line next to exclosure number 4. Right there. I noticed one thing that trial had
Did you see any of his other cameras or any of the other locations?
I wasn't able to see the screen when he was pointing out all the locations. I did see, I think, the one that he had for that Exploder 4 field. Were there others?
Well, let me ask, I think we need to clarify something at this point. Lisa, could you come up and I guess the question I'm going to ask is, did you have one camera and you moved it around to different locations, or did you use 4 cameras? Okay. So I just wanted to clarify
Where
that
were they at
point.
again? Can you show us
Oh,
again?
yeah, show them one more time where your cameras were at.
Was there one on in close proximity of the exposure 4? getting signed for the one in the wheat field?
It depends on how. I hired the guy. I don't do electric. I don't do computers. I don't do cell phones. None of it.
Understand.
So I hired him to do the cameras.
Okay, I think that's clarified that point, because that crossed my mind to have one that they moved around, or their location. Okay.
Okay.
Take your seat again, please. Troy, are you up now?
Yes, President Price. I did look through some of the pictures. I didn't have a chance to look through all of them. It appeared that some of those pictures were prior to the damage start period, which was May 16th. A lot of them were early on in the damage period, which I think has already been mentioned in May and June. I know one of those cameras was placed in that field, as indicated, near where the game and fish cameras were. Some of the elk in the photos that Mr. Rawhauser presented, I am not sure apply to the oak crop. It's difficult to see exactly what the location is on some of those photos. I think it was already mentioned that there were only 2 bales weighed by Mr. Rawhauser. I think that's important for the commission to consider.
Do you have any other information you want to present at this time? I think Scott?
Commission President Price, Commissioner Director Talbot, if the commission feels satisfied with the information presented before them, or if the claimant would like to make any final comments, I guess we could do that, and then turn it over to the commission for discussion and recommendation, if that's what they'd like to do next.
Commissioner Rail?
It appears to me that these panels were set out during the not long after planning. Is that right?
That is correct. They were set out, if memory serves me right, on June 4th.
So it looks like those plots would be good representation of what's inside or outside.
As indicated in my report, the locations were chosen by Mr. Rawhauser.
But what my question is those plots would represent growth or utilized material by or product by the elk, where they couldn't get into the study plot or the fenced off area.
President Price, Commissioner Rail, that is correct. Those locations were set up so that Mr. Rawhauser chose them, but they also correlated with what I was trained by the licensed crop adjuster to be. They weren't on hills and they weren't on the bottom of the fields where the moisture would have been greater. They were kind of at a midpoint, so I had no problem with them either.
For the record, they weren't put out mid-June, 1st of July. They were put out while the oats were growing in the younger stage.
Mr. Rail, that is correct.
Okay. I think at this point, if that's what you have to present, we'll ask the Rosshausers if they'd like to make any more presentation, and then we'll have to. Scott?
Commissioner President Bright, Commissioner Director Talbot, Rawhausers feel that they've presented their case and have no additional comments. I feel at this time the department has concluded their presentation, and so at this time, in the commission's hands, as I stated earlier, you have the ability to approve the department recommendation as it is, modify department recommendation, or reverse department's recommendation. So at this time, we'll close our presentation and allow the commission to deliberate and make a recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Well, commissioners, what's your pleasure on this? All right. Should we put it on the floor?
President.
Put it on the floor to discuss among ourselves.
I'm not a farmer, and I grow tomatoes very badly, so I defer to those of you in agriculture. But it just looking at this from an evidentiary standpoint, we have what I would say is a thorough investigation by the department, which used exclosures and non-exclosures and computations, versus the raw housers, and we've given you every opportunity to present your evidence here today. But what we've been presented with is the weight of two. Basically your claim is that the Game and Fish has miscalculated the production from your field, and to support that, we have two bales that were weighed in October to support that position. And so when I weigh the evidence from what the Game and Fish Committee has presented and what the claimant has presented, I have to conclude that this is a claim that I'll be voting to support the department's position denying the claim.
Could we get a motion, please?
Second that one you just made.
No, wasn't official.
Are you making that as a motion?
I would so move.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. You can go ahead. Any more comment on it? Discussion among the commission? Don't see no discussion. Call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. A denial of the motion. All opposed? No, all opposed. Okay, motion passed. We will deny the claim. Thank you.
So it's clear the commission has voted to deny, to upstand the department's recommendation to deny claimant to the raw houses for claim of 15025.
That's correct.
Thank
you. Should we move on to the next item?
Commissioner President Price, Commissioner Director Talbot, agenda item 19, Donald Rawhauser, trustee, damage claim 15042. Just for the record, the parties that were in the previous claim 15025 are still present. Claim 15042, a claim made by Donald Rawhauser, trustee for the Barty Bar Ranch Trust in the amount of $3,361.50 for damage to growing spring wheat. Department's recommendation upon their investigation was to deny the claim in full, as our investigation found that there was no damage. So with that, are there any questions before the Rawhausers come forward? Lisa and Donnie come forward on this claim.
Do the commissioners have any questions from Scott? Okay. Lisa, would you come forward, please? Bring your father.
Okay, so this is the wheat field claim, and I'm guessing, right? This is our wheat field claim? Okay. So you guys have pictures on this. I believe they're in Exhibit C. We didn't get Exhibit C back when the department sent the packet back to us. So Scott said he would indicate to you.
Commissioner, if you go to your presentation for 15042, if you work your way down through there, it'll be an Exhibit C. It'll be a lot of pictures that'll be listed Exhibit C, I believe, on it's quite a ways down through the PowerPoint.
Is this where all the elk are in the picture?
There's some elk in the pictures that Rawhausers put. I've got hard copies if they didn't get transposed in, but I've got hard copies. It should have been.
They're under the section entitled affidavit. They're not in the PowerPoint. Go to the affidavit section.
Where is it? So,
Must have been. Well, there must be in the other. It's probably in his affidavit file. I can get out the hard copies that I have and.
Affidavit, there's affidavit, okay.
Affidavit.
Go to affidavit
Yep, there you go.
1542 and just scroll down through where you have that.
There we go. Let's see. So just from there down.
Mr. President, can I just
Yes.
interrupt you for a second? We also have a crop adjuster report here for this wheat field in question that shows that it will make 42.9 bushel to the acre. Is that right? 42.9, and I believe that Troy's report will indicate to you that it's more like 25. So we have a discrepancy there. So we want to give you guys this insurance adjuster report so that you can view that too,
Would that
please.
be okay, Elisa? Would be okay if Scott took that, brought it, and
Absolutely.
showed us there, and if you need to, you can come over here and show us.
Show us, okay. He said it would be okay if you went over there to show him the numbers that you're looking at.
Commissioner,
I apologize that we're a little inexperienced in this. Next time we'll be a little more prepared and we can make our own PowerPoint presentation.
okay.
Commissioner President Price, Commissioner Director Talbot, these are the crop adjuster sheets just handed me by Connie and Lisa. We have two separate ones, 2 to 3 pages on each one. The first one we have appraised the potential 42.9 and 43.1 on the first page. And that is under the heading of column 31, appraised potential.
Is it, excuse me, is this for insurance, crop insurance type appraisal? Okay, that's what I want to clear up.
Yes.
It is
Yes.
a crop insurance appraisal was made.
Yep.
Did you get an adjustment on this crop insurance for your crop?
Adjustment on the crop insurance. Like, did he get a claim? Is that what you're asking? Did you get no?
You did not file a claim under your insurance.
You can file a claim under your insurance for the
Okay.
loss.
That will
But this is,
my yield if I do that.
this is the information that was presented to you to get the insurance. Is that correct?
Is this the information that was presented to you to get the insurance?
No, that I have insurance. I've had it for 20 years.
They just come out
And
and
they
do
just
this,
come out and do this.
so you know
I
where
didn't
you're
think
at.
I would need it. I just got this paperwork 30 days ago.
Okay, so, but this is
I didn't think I would need it.
crop insurance information that was given
Mhm.
there. So I'm just looking, the question I'm really asking, this is official crop adjustment information.
Yes,
for
this is
insurance.
official, yes.
Okay, thank you. I want to clarify that.
Absolutely. 48, there's a 40. This main one here.
This is page 8, so you need like page 9. This page 5. There's page 4 and 5, so these probably two go together.
They do.
I bet you they do. Well, they're page 4 and 5, Dad.
I think this goes with that.
What do you think? Okay.
That's 41A.
And that's 41.
That goes that.
That's
I don't know this, these two are at.
You need page 3.
I don't know.
This is 5 and 6.
That's oats. Them are all oats.
These are all oats.
But there's one more set of deals.
13, 11.
And I don't know where this is.
Lisa,
Yes.
please come up here, maybe with your father, please.
Yeah.
And so I've never read one of these
You've never.
before.
Okay. So Dad.
Me either.
Well, I just have to, I'm trying to find the best information I can. Okay, that's what I understood. Okay, and this is a potential, is this a potential again here, or the yield? That's what it should have made. Where's the actual yield on it? No, but where's the amount? It didn't make the 42.
I mean, 25. That's what it did. I have 29 down there. That's fine. Well, but I can get all that paper. And here's another setup. Thank you. Not here today.
No, that's fine. I just trying to decipher. You brought the information, and I'm trying to understand it. I think the commission, to the best we can, we try to understand it.
So there's this discrepancy. What Troy said, what these people said. But you'd see the whole picture. There's definitely damage in the roof. I don't care if it says no or yea or nay.
You filed damage claims before.
Yeah.
So you know the process.
Well, exactly. We're learning. That he was paid for.
The very first one.
The very first one that you were paid on. Somebody he had assistance from.
Bear.
I ask you to go back so you're on the microphone back there, please. You're also on video too.
On video?
You're moved up in technology.
Hey, get over here. You're on camera. Well, just okay. So just talk to them about your first damage claim that you submitted and why it was so much better than these damage claims that we submitted.
Because Chris Baird come to the house, sit down at the table, went over all of it with me and filled it out himself, and I signed it.
This was a,
And Chris Barrett done a good job as far as I'm concerned. He went out, he potentially done an appraisal too, and I was satisfied with it.
okay, and he was your former warden?
He was what?
Was he the former warden?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
We-
Okay, commissioners, do you have any other questions at this
So they want
point?
to explain, can you start at the beginning, okay, you got a wheat field and it, what evidence have you provided, okay, it's supposed to yield this, have you submitted the potential and what it did make?
Did you understand what he said?
He wants to know what it made.
Yeah, what evidence do we have to show,
Well, I can
what
get
it
it.
made?
I can get it from the insurance company.
But has that been submitted on this claim?
No, because it hasn't been submitted on the claim.
I don't know.
We didn't have that information available to us when the claim was
Filed.
to be submitted. We had to have it, we had to have the claim submitted to you by a certain date, and this information was not available to us at that time, is what I'm
In
guessing.
fact, is
They sent it to
there's
us.
go show him. That's when it came, February something.
We didn't get this information until February of 2015. When we got the information. So we didn't have the information available to us to include with the damage claim because there was a deadline in which we had to have that in.
Okay, let's, I'm gonna pull, or look at the commissioners. Commissioner Rowell, you had the comment?
Yes, I do. Again, this is a dry land farm,
That is correct.
not irrigated,
Correct.
but you didn't submit the actual harvest bushel.
I have that somewhere. They come and measure the bends, and I put them in the bends.
And what was the rainfall this year? Was it below average? Was it above average?
Above.
Above.
Do we have record of that? Did we get that from the NRCS?
I'll bet you could get it.
The way this is going, I'm gonna step in here at this point, and Scott, you correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't have all the evidence to really make a decision on. Is that,
We have to hear their side of it too. The department hasn't given their
you know,
PowerPoint, so I guess we should look
no,
at that too.
but this, I'm pointing this out at this point. You don't have the the result, how much you did produce.
You don't have the net result on what you produced.
I can get it.
Okay. Yes, you are correct. He does not have it with him today, but he can get it.
Okay. I'm gonna defer to Commissioner Rail for another question.
One more question quickly. You had mentioned we owed you 100 ton of oat hay. Where did that come from? I don't. And this is on the previous claim.
He's
Mm-hmm.
back to the previous claim,
Mhm.
and he said that when you made the comment about you owed them, they owed you for 100 tons, he wanted to know where that came from.
Troy said it would make over 3 tons an acre. It didn't even make 2, and there's 85 acres.
So that's
Pretty easy to figure that.
Okay, but this.
I'm trying to make a pattern here.
Okay.
And that's fine.
Excuse me.
Mr. President,
You're done?
Mr. President, you keep saying they came and measured the bins and that there's some
insurance
production
company.
numbers. Who is they?
The insurance company,
And why
Rising.
would an insurance company be measuring your bins?
because that's their job.
Did you file some type of insurance claim?
No, every year you have to have them come and do that
Okay. And you
for your production records.
okay, and you knew this hearing was today, correct?
Yeah?
For some time. Is that right?
he said for some time you knew that this hearing.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're here today and you don't have those production records showing us what this hay or this wheat actually produced, correct?
Due to our inexperience
We'll tell him that.
basically due to our inexperience in this environment, we're not prepared with it. We didn't know what we would need. We didn't even know how it was going to go. So
Okay, but
this is our first rodeo.
and I understand that, ma'am, and this is a whole different environment than you're used to, but
Yes,
you don't have those records with you today.
No.
that is correct.
All right.
Rest assured, we will have them in the future.
Commissioner Frank, what I'd like to do to proceed and move ahead, we don't have a complete picture, but I would like to have Troy come up and give his part of the presentation. And then at that point, we'll consider what we're going to do. At this point, I think we have to recognize the record isn't complete. So,
I have one more point to make.
yes.
I seen the appraisal the game warden done. He said it would make 4.6 bushel more outside the pen than inside. How could that happen? There's no way on God's green earth that could ever happen.
I'm not going to try to answer that because I don't have the
Yes,
answer.
sir.
Okay, let's proceed with this if we could, please. Don, I guess you're on.
Let me provide some additional information, Commissioner, President Price, Commissioners. If you look at Mr. Rawhauser's damage claim affidavit that he submitted as a verified affidavit with all the attachment stuff, he claimed spring wheat for seed at 134.7 acres, of which 5.6 acres he cut for hay, for a total of 129.1 acres for seed. He says his actual production from that amount was 24.9 bushels per acre. So I don't know if that provides clarification or on the issue that was just discussed, but that's what he's claiming was actually produced with damage. And if you were to read his Exhibit A's and B's, that provides additional explanation, which is part of his damage claim affidavit, that maybe will help answer some of your questions. But that was what was provided to the department on his verified claim that was notarized and accepted by the department. So we did not have privy to those insurance worksheets you just looked at. I believe they said they just showed up 30 days ago, which was way past the end of the damage period, and way past the statutory requirement for us to have those claims investigated and back to the landowner within 90 days. And so it would be outside of the damage investigation period that we have to abide by. So with that, I'll ask Troy Ochterhoff to come up and present the department picture of this claim.
Okay, thank you. Troy, go ahead, please.
Commissioner Price, Commission Director Talbot, I'd like to present the second damage claim today. That'd be claim number 15042. A little background information on this claim. Mr. Rawhauser has filed damage claims with the Wyoming Game and Fish Department annually since 2011. Don Rawhauser has been given copies of the damage statutes and regulation on numerous occasions, most recently in the spring of 2014 by myself. 2 damage claims were filed by Mr. Rawhauser for the Barty Bar Ranch Trust in 2014. These were assigned claim numbers 15025 and 15042. Proceeding with damage claim 15042, the spring wheat damage claim. You can see a portion of Mr. Rawhauser's damage affidavit here. Mr. Rawhauser claimed $3,361.50 for elk damage to his wheat crop. This amount is calculated according to Exhibit B. And you can see there, again, he's claiming 134.7 acres, less 5.6 acres. Those were weedy acres that he cut and excluded from this claim. So that leaves a total of 129.1 acres. And his claim on his affidavit is that production was 24.9 bushels per acre. Here is Exhibit B for the property damage submitted by Mr. Rawhauser. You can read that for yourself, but if you read through that, there was no evidence provided to document the 373.5 bushels lost. It was just a number given. Again, we put exclosures up on the spring wheat crop. They were installed on the 10th of June by Don Rawhauser, Tim Rawhauser, and myself. Again, Mr. Rawhauser chose the locations of these exposures himself. I went back and photographed and took GPS locations of the exposures. And again, trail cameras were set up by exposure number 7 to monitor altitudes. The crop map for the wheat fields is indicated here with exposures. You can see exposure 5, 6, 7, and 8. And the cameras, again, we did a duplicate on the cameras. We put 2 cameras, one on the actual exposure in 7, and then one on the south end of the field there. This is a group of photos of all 4 exposures. You can see they were put in prior to the crop having much chance to grow, so before the damage period started. This is a photo of the maturing wheat crop as it's growing, taken July 25. Here is the exposure on number 7 with the camera actually mounted on the exposure. The other one would be to the left or to the south of this exposure. And this photo was taken on the 16th of August. This is the mature wheat crop. You can see, you can compare the crop both inside and outside the exposures. This was taken on August 25. There were 2 trail cameras placed near exposure number 7. The cameras operated from July 31 to September 9, a total of 41 days. The cameras took approximately 141 photos per day. Elk were only photographed on 1 day. That group of elk that I could count in that photo was 25 elk, and they moved across the spring wheat field in approximately 6 minutes. It was actually a little under 6 minutes. And you have that group of 9 photos in your packet. So it took less than 6 minutes for those elk to move across that field, and I thought that was important to stress, that they did not spend time on that field. Here is the group of 9 photos. You can see the photo in the upper left corner, the elk were just entering the wheat field, and then by the bottom right, that's the last elk that was photographed leaving that field. And the times on those photos was less than 6 minutes from start to finish. The spring wheat crop was then evaluated on August 25. I evaluated that spring wheat crop production both inside and outside all 4 exposures. Again, this method was taught to me by a licensed crop adjuster from Crook County in 2013, and we used the same method on the damage claim that was to be submitted that year. The spring wheat grain production was then averaged and compared inside and outside the exposures, and average production inside the exposures was evaluated at 25.5 bushels per acre. Average production outside the exposures was evaluated at 30.1 bushels per acre. And it's been brought up, why would it be greater outside the exposures? I'm not a farmer, but I did some research on that and found out that because of varying soil types, varying amounts of moisture, all those are going to affect the production. And from my experience evaluating production on these crops, I can tell you that hardly ever are they exactly the same production inside and outside. But I can also tell you that they were very close, as you can see, within 5 bushels per acre. The spring wheat grain production was therefore 4.6 bushels per acre greater on the outside exposures, and therefore no elk damage was measured. These are the evaluation worksheets I used on this claim. You can see the upper worksheet is for exposure 5, the lower one for exposure 6, and then worksheets for 7 and 8. According to Wyoming Game and Fish Commission Chapter 28, the regulation governing big or trophy game or game bird damage claims, again, Section 2, the definitions applies to this claim. Subsection J defines damage as meaning the actual production to land, growing, cultivated crops, stored crops, seed crops, or improvements that is caused by big game animals. Therefore, based on the department's investigation, there was no elk damage to the spring wheat grain crop. Merely walking through the fields does not constitute damage according to our regulation. To summarize then, spring wheat grain crop production in bushels was calculated as follows. production inside the exclosures, adding up to 4, equaled 101.9 and gave an average of 25.5 bushels per acre. And if you remember, in Mr. Rawhauser's affidavit, he listed the production as 24.9 bushels per acre. So very close to what his crop insurance adjuster estimated. Production outside the exclosures, the 4 exclosures added up to 120.4, which gave an average of 30.1 bushels per acre. Spring wheat grain crop yield was 4.6 bushels per acre, greater outside the exclosures than inside the exclosures. Don Rawhauser stated in Exhibit B of his verified affidavit that he is claiming elk damage to 129.1 acres of spring wheat for seed. He's claiming that at $9 per bushel. Much of this acreage, including the largest field, which was 50.7 acres, is outside of the alleged area that elk damaged, as Don Rawhauser stated to me on August 18, 2014, in a conversation I had with him. We discussed the various fields, and as you can see from that crop map I put up previously, there's a number of small fields, and they're dispersed throughout his property. Don Rawhauser claimed this loss was due to significant trampling, bedding, and grazing damage to the wheat crops by the elk. Trail cameras set up by myself documented the elk use and condition of these spring wheat fields until harvest on September 9 of 2014. The trail cameras only documented one group of approximately 25 elk moving through the spring wheat field. This herd moved through the wheat field in about 6 minutes. No damage to the spring wheat grain crop was measured or documented. Therefore, the department recommends denial of this claim.
Questions for Grant? Commission? One of the things, I'm going to make a comment here. One of the things that bothers me quite a bit about this is how in the world, in both cases, we're getting higher production outside than inside. You know, equal production I could see, or close to equal, but that's a fairly large difference, you know, 5 out of 30 there. That's a thing I don't have a real good answer for.
Yes. President. Again, these spots were chosen by Mr. Rawhauser?
That is correct, Commissioner Rail.
Yes, Commissioner Anselmi.
Mr. Rawhauser's affidavit or thing he submitted, where's this picture where the elk go through the fence and it looks like a truck went through that field? Where's that at? Do you recall that picture?
I don't have that in my PowerPoint because that was a picture submitted by Mr. Rawhauser.
That's that Exhibit C in his
Yeah,
affidavit.
Exhibit C, yeah. What was that at?
That's under the affidavit file. I don't. And that's.
But where is it in this?
That's part of Mr. Rawhauser's submission to his affidavit versus what we use for an investigation.
I mean, where is it on the map? Did this happen?
Oh, off the map. I guess they have to come up and show you.
Do you call it? There's a picture where there's a picture you submitted that shows a fence down and it looks like like something went through there. It looks like a yeah fence, yeah.
Where's that at?
Yeah.
Exhibit C?
Wrong picture.
Oh, that's on the oats?
Yeah.
Oh, that picture's when they went through the oats.
This is spring wheat crop. That's what he's talking about. It says spring wheat crop. And that's submitted in the affidavit. So that wasn't the wheat picture, that was a different picture.
That was showed you of the
Broke
fence
down gate, yeah.
that was on
That
the
was-
oat crop.
In the winter week.
That was between the oats and the winter wheat, not the spring wheat.
So there was a field, the road, where the elk tore down, excuse me, Mr. President, may I?
Go ahead.
That road is, separating the two fields?
Okay, can you repeat that again?
That road, or a damaged road, or where the elk tore the fence down is separating the two fields?
So where they tore the fence down,
Oats
is it
and
separating,
versus-
is the fence separating the two fields? Is
Yes.
that what you're asking?
Yeah.
The fence separates
Oats
the
from the wheat.
oats from the
winter
fall, the winter wheat.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any more questions?
Mr. President, I do. Mr. Rawhauser, the claim you've made for your spring wheat, the one we're discussing now, has exhibits to your affidavit. Did you have someone help you with this claim?
No, that's all us.
Okay. You know, it
I mean,
appears different than the first claim we looked at. I don't think the first claim, the affidavit had exhibits, unless I'm mistaken. So, did
No,
you
it
help
did-
him with this one, Lisa?
I helped him with this one for the spring wheat. He did the one for the oats completely on his own, to my knowledge.
Okay.
He didn't have any help with the oats.
And so in there, it alleges in Exhibit B, it says, according to the federal crop adjuster, the units produced on average 24.9 bushels to the acre.
That's what they said.
And so is the federal crop adjuster the insurance person you've been talking about? Okay, so you had that information at the time you filed the claim.
Maybe.
Not on paper. Did they tell you
Yeah,
that it
that's
was
just on paper somewhere.
We just didn't
Absolutely.
send it in with our
No, we didn't
documentation.
send it.
Okay.
I mean,
Well,
it's just,
and we have it now. What I'm trying to, I mean, what you've submitted now is what you got from the federal crop adjuster you reference in your claim.
Yeah, when you people denied our claim, I told them to send down the records when
Oh,
they appraised it.
so we didn't
And I
request
didn't get
the
that
record.
until a month ago.
We didn't request the record until after the claim was denied.
So, yeah. I guess what I'm just trying to understand, Lisa, and if he has trouble hearing me, please explain. You know, he says someplace he has production records that we don't have today. And then we say, according to the federal crop adjuster, the units produced, that tells me that's a production record. So was he referring to the production records when you created Exhibit B, or was he referring to the estimate of potential production?
Okay.
You understand?
Were you referring to the estimate of the potential production
Yes.
when we wrote in?
Yes,
Yes,
that's
the
what them
potential
papers are.
production. Those are all potential production papers. And so let me just make sure I have this correct to him.
Okay.
When we wrote up the exhibit and we put in there that it was going to make the 24.9 or it
Well,
potentially
didn't we
had,
send that paper in that
I don't know.
exhibit?
Is there not a paper
It's
in
like
the
a
exhibit?
picture of a grain bin and measurements.
I don't believe so, but let me look.
I thought that was in there, actually.
I think so. Maybe one more question, Mr. President.
I believe what we have done before.
There you go.
Is that in his affidavit, Scott?
I believe so. Yes.
Is this it right here?
Okay, so you're claiming actual production then of 24.9 acres. Bushels per acre.
Well, it should have made a lot more than it did. Let me put
But
it that way.
I'm trying, your actual production this year was 24.9. That's what you're.
Yeah, 24.9.
That's the evidence, that's the documents you've submitted to us. Okay, is that accurate?
So, yes.
Yeah, that was accurate.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Okay. Scott, at this point, I think we've established the actual production was 24.9 bushels to the acre.
President, that's correct, and that's what he does claim on the front page of his affidavit, as I stated earlier. He does the actual production was 24.9 bushels per acre. That is on the front page of his affidavit.
Okay. I'm going to ask Troy to come back up, please. Lisa, thank you. My computer's got a glitch. Maybe I've got a glitch. If we look here, let's look at the balance that Troy. Troy?
Yes.
Maybe I can ask you to do this. Would you please put your calculations on the screen again about inside and outside of the. Okay. We've got it here now. The actual production is 24.9. Commissioners, do you have this information? Put it up on the board.
Go to your summary, Troy.
Go to your summary. Put that on the board. Okay. Now, I'm going to just follow this along, and if you have questions, from the commission, let's do it. Basically, what he estimated inside the exposure was 25.5. What Mr. Rawhauser submitted was 24.9 was the result. The outside the exposure, I have a difficult time in my mind of reconciling inside and outside numbers. But to me, it doesn't look like there's that much difference. 25.5, 24.9, they can almost both be rounded to 25. Now that's my observation. And I submit this to the commission for their consideration. Do you have any more questions?
No.
More questions? Okay, let's move ahead with this. I think we can. I am going to give Mr. Rawhauser a chance to comment on this. Would you come forward, Lisa? Do you want to comment?
You want to comment?
Do you have anything further to add?
I guess.
I don't guess so. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. Our proof, I guess, was in the pictures. And from what I've learned here today, you want facts in writing, so that you have something to say that there's no way to deny the claim. You can't look at a picture and say, oh, there's damage there. So we'll be better prepared next time, is all we can say.
I will say that is one of our problems, because we're constrained to have solid information to expend the commission funds, because you've heard this before, we're responsible to the public, but we are. Yeah. And so this is the thing, and we have to kind of stay within the law. Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other comments?
No.
I just don't know how it can be 4.6 bushel more outside than inside. That's 20%.
Okay.
That's all I have to say, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I appreciate you coming. What commission?
Mr. President, if there's discussion, we can have that. If there's not, I'm prepared to make a motion.
I think we're ready for a motion unless there's some more discussion.
What I would move, according to my calculations here, if we compare within the enclosure to actual production, the most his spring wheat would have been damaged would be 0.6 bushels per acre times the 129.1 acres that he claims were damaged times his price of $9 a bushel. That would result in a damage claim to Mr. Rawhauser of $697.20.14. So $697.14 is what it appears his evidence presented here today might establish as a damage. So I would move that we alter the recommendation of the department and we move to award Mr. Rawhauser $697.14 for damage to his spring wheat crop.
I second that motion.
Second. Okay. Discussion within the commission? Discussion within the commission? Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, it's motion moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Commission President Price, Commissioners, Director Talbot. Just to confirm, the amount is $697.14. Is that correct?
That's correct. 697.
697.14.
Okay, thank you. We will be advising Mr. Rawhauser that. I'll do that in person as well. He'll be getting written notification of that in the next step if he wishes to take 15025 to the next step. Thank you. That concludes appeals for this meeting.
Mr. President, might I do one more thing? I'm like, is that okay?
Sure.
I'm like Mr. President. I have a wonderment about how production could be greater outside of an enclosure pursuant to inside an enclosure. So if you might research that and report back to us later. I'm not going to put you on the spot today, but I think there may be some reason why that occurs.
I know in a nutshell that some plants respond when they're growing, when they're nipped off at the bud, that puts the plant back kind of in a remode to expand its volume, so to speak, or its mass, and at times you will get a more of a productive crop if it's done at the right time. But we will get with our folks that are biologists with regards to habitat and plants, and we'll get something back to you.
That'd be great. I'm curious about that as well.
Would you like that in some type of official presentation or maybe some type of correspondence?
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. President.
We have
Sorry.
two things, I think, here. Let's go ahead and do the minutes.
Yeah, Mr. President, I'd move that we approve the commission meeting minutes from January 22nd, 23rd, and January 29th.
Second.
You have a second? Okay. Moved and second. Did you get that, Sherry? Okay, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, I have a blue slip up here for a Mr. Tyler Melton. Would you come forward, please? And while he's doing this, I would comment that if there's anybody that wants to speak from the public, that will be following this presentation.
President Price, Commissioners, Director Talbot. The Wyoming Houndsman Association is comprised of a multifaceted group of sportsmen across the entire state of Wyoming, aimed at promoting the merits and ethics of hunting with the use of hounds and other coursing dogs. We support sound data-based management of all wildlife and provide a unified voice for the conservation and management of animals such as mountain lions and bobcats. The association strives to educate others on the ethics and sportsmanship of hound hunting through public awareness and education, as well as supporting the long-term perpetuity of all wildlife for future generations. We're a newly formed organization and are here to familiarize ourselves with the commission meetings and the game and fish proceedings. We plan on bringing more vocal and activity at upcoming meetings as we get closer to the Lions season setting and as management issues arise.
Okay. Do you have anything else to present?
There's one point in the Wyoming Lion regulations that I'd like to touch on. It states in there, and I think it's just something that's been overlooked, but it states in there that you cannot kill a female with kittens by her side. And what happens in a situation when you turn loose on a lion track? They take this lion track into an area. They jump the lion, and then the lion runs a given distance until there is no the chase is over. They tree the lion, and then so the kittens are not by their side. The kittens are left a ways away. So the way it's written, these kittens are not by her side, so they can legally kill the lion. And I think it's just an overlook on what's occurred. I know this has happened many, many times, and I've even talked to the game wardens, and they said, well, that's the way that it is written. The kittens are not by her side. In my opinion, it needs to state that a lactating female, or maybe one with nipple rings, that is very easily identified.
I've been remiss in not having you give your name.
My name is Bert Fortner.
Okay.
I've hunted hounds all my life, and I've seen this situation many, many times. So I would say probably a quarter of your lions that are being taken are lactating females, or ones that are pregnant and getting ready to have babies with either, like I say, the nipple rings, and to see that she's about to be sucked or she is sucking is very, very clear.
Okay. I understand what you're saying. I believe the commission does too. I think this thing needs to be really brought to our fish and game people, some of the wardens. Brian, I believe the lions are under your purview, and I would suggest you work with this with Brian and see how it works out. Right at this point, we'll take your information. We ask Brian to take a look at it, so that's the best thing I can do right now.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it to light and see where we need to go, you know, to solve this.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming and presenting that, and I think internally the department can take a look at it and see. I can't guarantee where it'll go.
Mr. President, I have one question. So you mentioned that you're forming a statewide alliance of hound hunters. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. There are some local chapters within the state exist right now, right?
They're all under one right now. The Northeast is a charter out of Newcastle. Other than that, it's just the Wyoming Houndsman Association. There's about 40 to 50 members currently.
Okay, thank you for that information.
Yep.
Where are you gentlemen out of?
Gillette, Wyoming.
Gillette. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Is there any public comment that we need to call for from the floor? Okay, I have a hand that's raised. Please come forward. State your name, please, and your purpose.
Mr. President, Commission, my name is Joe Sandrini. I'm the wildlife biologist for Newcastle. Started off here in 1994 as the game warden. I just wanted to thank you all for having this meeting in Newcastle. I don't think back then, at that time, Game Warden Talbot and Mr. Culver would have ever thought we'd be here 20-some years later. But I do thank you for coming, and I know our editor of our local paper has been a little bit critical over the years that you haven't met here. And so I know he was very appreciative also. So thank you for coming. We enjoyed having you here.
Okay, thank you. Is there any more business to be brought before the commission at this time? I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Meeting adjourned.
Sorry.